Welcome to another episode of the RevGEN podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about how to better revenue manage during natural disasters, like the hurricane we're currently seeing in the Gulf right now. This week, we're joined by Adam. Adam is one of our senior directors here at Korea RevGEN. Adam, do you want to do a quick intro?
Thanks, Daniel. My name's Adam. I've been at RevGEN for about 6.5 years, so I've been doing this for a while. But I've had a lot of situations where we've had hotels both positively and negatively impacted by natural disasters.
So Adam and I are going to be sharing some tips in just a bit that can help you better manage your hotel in the event of a natural disaster. But before we get started, the main reason why we're putting this podcast out now is because right now we have a very large hurricane forming in the Gulf, Hurricane Ian, which is currently projected to impact the Tampa area. And already over 20 Florida counties have already declared a state of emergency. So it's very relevant. So hurricanes are obviously one of the biggest natural disasters out there, but there are a whole host of natural disasters that can also affect hotel demand. So let's give just a few examples of what some of those natural disasters can be. The first example that I thought of was wildfires. So I know that last year in Northern California, we had some hotels in Northern California, and some of our hotels actually saw a major increase in occupancy as a lot of residents were forced to evacuate. But also, too, some hotels obviously had to shut down because they were in the evacuation area. But what's another example, Adam?
So flooding. Earlier this year in Kentucky and Tennessee, we have a decent amount of hotels. There was bad flooding, and depending on the hotel's location, it was either really positive or a negative impact in terms of demand. But similar to your situation with wildfires, it was more so demand driven from the recovery, insurance, and things like that. But a ton of opportunity for a lot of extended stay business and based around those floods.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of insurance, tornadoes is another one. So one example is this year that we're in, 2022, some of our Austin hotels had quite a bit of compression from guests who had some minor tornado damage to their homes. So those kind of guests were staying for extended periods of time. And in almost all those cases, they had their lodging paid for by an insurance provider. So this actually drove a lot of extended stay business to those northern Austin suburbs. And what about one final example, Adam?
So keeping it local, we had bad winter weather in Dallas last year. So unfortunately, we also didn't have power. So in a lot of cases, it was a demand loser for hotels because they didn't have power to host guests. But the hotels that did saw really strong compression, particularly from a lot of utility companies as they were getting things fixed in the area. But yeah, the one time a year in Dallas, we get bad weather.
Yep, that is a great example. So let's move on and let's get to it. Our 4 tips for revenue managing a natural disaster. So the first tip that I have is hopefully the most important, but it's to be ethical. So it's really important that if we are in a position to pick up demand from a natural disaster, that we as revenue managers not see it necessarily as an opportunity to profit, but instead we need to think of it as an opportunity to offer a place to stay for the people who need it most. So a general rule of thumb is that if you are benefiting from a natural disaster in some way, don't price more than 10% above your running 4-week average for that given day of week. And that's, again, just a general rule of thumb that we like to use as revenue managers. What's another tip, Adam?
Sure. So more so related to inventory management. So potentially closing out third-party channels or all of your channels, including your own website, particularly to have full control of inventory and reservations on property, to really make things easier on the operations team with potential overbookings with OTA channels or things like that. In addition to potentially increasing rate, I highly suggest you close out discounts, things like government, AAA, and other available discounts to drive rate from the bottom up.
Cool. And tip number 3, I jotted down, if your hotel would benefit from sustained occupancy during a natural disaster, another thing that you can do is consider registering your hotel on FEMA's website. And you would do that if you feel like the effects of the natural disaster will linger for a long time. So you may be able to pick up longer term business at perhaps a government per diem rate, which can also help you raise your extended stay occupancy, also while helping victims of natural disasters. And the final tip?
Sure. Back to the operations team, boots on the ground during these situations. So making sure we're on the same page with them is very important. Revenue, sales, and operations. There's a lot of opportunities that come up during these times with negotiated rates or project-based business, and we want to make sure we're on the same page with the sales team and not overbooking the hotel. In addition to they could potentially lose power. We need to provide them with the necessary tools and resources so they can manage the hotel if we're to lose power over one of these disasters. And in some cases that means being flexible with different cancellation policies. Again, this is a natural disaster, like you mentioned earlier. In a lot of cases, there's going to be plenty of demand where we can often resell the room at a higher rate by giving someone a free cancellation over this period.
Nice. Well, we hope that this podcast helps you better manage the next time that you have an unexpected natural disaster, or better yet, we hope that one just doesn't happen at all. But in either case, it's always better to be prepared. So thanks for listening.